Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching. You're watching
Fanboy,
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
Well, Neal, I'm great to catch up with you. Jon, it's a pleasure to meet you. We are talking The Last Rodeo, out May 23rd. One thing in watching the film that I would be remiss not to mention is the ageism in this that your character faces, especially because the fun part in this, at least for me, is that Joe is facing his ageism, yet my wrestling coach, who just turned 60, who's aged out after this competition, is training for the World Greco Championships.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Never grow up.
Right. And then, of course, Neal has to show off his abs in the film. That's my only spoiler on this one. So, we're
I
having a
worked
good time
hard,
with all of it.
Arsen. I worked so hard on those abs. It was crazy. Flip my life. Use it. Guarantee it works.
Yeah.
I loved it so much, I bought part of the company.
Oh, wow. Listen, you guys did an incredible job with this film. We've gotten bull riding films and rodeo films before, but this is so layered. There's ageism, there's spirituality, there's coming back to faith after a lost loved one, there's dealing with health issues, and this is the maximum of spoilers I'm trying to give. With a layered story like this, and then condensing it down to 2 hours, how difficult is it to go through those motions and hitting those beats without just like piling stuff on to go, really, it's going to get that much more intense?
Well, for an actor, it's you're there the day and you're working your stuff and you're doing your scenes and it's awesome and great. All the heavy lifting is from this guy. So for Jon Avnet to come in on this, and they asked when this started rolling, who do you want to direct it? And I said, well, there's only one person on this planet I want to direct it. My mentor, my big brother, a man that I love so much, who understands me more than just about anybody. And when Jon came on board and I said, make this your own, our script, you take it and run with it. Boy, did he make it his own. And all the layers that you just touched upon, RC, are certainly there. But it takes an amazing director to be able to pull all those things off equally as awesome as each other. And that's the hard part. And Jon did it. And here we are. I'm so blessed to talk about it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
in answer to the question specifically, Neal was the heart and soul of this. For me, he owned the character. It was something that was close to him, on almost every level. So that gave me a great foundation from which to work. In terms of how you tell a story with a lot of those layered elements in it, I think the laws, to the extent any laws exist in filmmaking, is narrative bites. How much narrative material are you getting in any scene, and does it propel the story forward? Right. And so, as you have what I would call a domestic story, and you've got the bull riding story as the primary engines there. And that was the challenge, to figure out, what's enough. The film came in at 1 hour and 47 minutes and 40 seconds. Not that I'm going to be specific, without titles. And that was pretty close to what I thought was a good length, not looking at it as time, just, in terms of it. I mean, there's still things, by the way, if I was left to my own druthers, I'd probably cut another minute or minute and a half just because I'm insane. But I love doing this. But that was the problem that needed to be solved, and the way I work is I make it, I show it to a lot of people. I get feedback from filmmakers. I made the knucklehead, my partner over here in crime, come and look at it. He doesn't like to look at the films usually, to get feedback from him. And he stayed involved with the process the whole time. He was both respectful and he was forthright, which is just exactly what I want and what I need. So that was what the discipline was. And then once we started putting it in front of, real audiences, 400 or 500 people out in Provo, the first screening there.
They ate it up.
It seemed like the screenings before were indicative of a larger audience. And one of the things that I use to judge these movies is laughs, especially in the theater. And I did this film to be in the theaters, May 23rd, 2,000 plus theaters.
You got to support, if you love movies like this that talk about the heartland of America and families,
you got to go.
And if you love rodeo, all these things, you got to go support, because it tells Hollywood we need more of these films.
So going back to this process, and then I'll wind this up. Uh, there's the moment when Michael T, his character shows up, and Neal tells him he's going to ride the bulls and the legends, and he laughs. And Michael T was fantastic in that moment. And I shot it. I didn't go down with him. I stayed on Neal's face as he's being humiliated by his friend. That laugh for the audience was the sort of signpost to me that I had them. And once you have them, they're there. They're yours to lose, but at least you have them. So I'm always asking myself, when does a movie start, and when do you really hook people in? But it basically said you have permission to enjoy this, and that humor would be part of the experience, so that the dramatic stuff wouldn't be so heavy that it just weighed you down. You needed that relaxation. And then the last part of it was that the action, which I really wanted to do in this movie, had a real emotional element. And again, that's all about this guy here, and his emotional center, and knowing the stakes. So, when he gets a phone call from his daughter as he's getting ready to ride, and he gets, a troubling call, what does Michael T say to him? He says, I know this is harsh, but you got to focus if you're going to get on that bill. And Neal's character says, I'm trying. And you realize he is trying, but how difficult it is to get on a bull, how difficult it is to get on a bull when he's going through all this. So that combination of what I would call emotional story with an emotional story about needing to solve this problem, I thought they gave us some pretty strong narrative drive.
Well, the one thing that John kept on doing, not just to my character, but everyone in the film, was just heap on more conflict. Everything had more conflict, more conflict, more conflict, more conflict. And by doing so, the payoff in the end is just, it's phenomenal. How my character Joe and his daughter Sally finally figure out a common ground by the end. And that's through working hard at it and through faith. And those are the components that really, I think, will speak loudly to people, because everyone goes through hard times in life. Everyone goes through fractured relationships, whether it's with their kids, with their wife, with their husband, whatever the case is, coworker, and how you build that back up and make it even better than it was before. And those are the things that we really grapple with in this film, and I'm so proud of that.
Right. Which is also fantastic because this is coming out just in time for Pentecost.
That's right.
Yeah. And Neal, I do have to commend you on this, since your wife is in the film. You finally got to write off your wedding photos. You got to show your real wedding album in there, and now it's a tax write-off.
Those bad boys have been sitting in an album for 23 years, and we never even, not even an album. They're just like loose pictures. And we finally get to put them in, people get to.
I said to Ruvé, we were on a plane, I said, do you have any photos of your wedding? Because I thought, well, if they're any good, I could use them. So she starts texting them to me on the plane. I go, first of all, God, she's just a gorgeous bride.
Oh, yeah.
And the photos were really good. So I thought, okay, we could put them into the wedding video.
I don't get it.
But I just think it's great that after spending all that money for a wedding photographer, now you get to write it off for your taxes.
Right.
That's
right. That's
Very
right.
Clever.
That's right. That was my cousin who was a photographer, so it was free anyway. Irish, right? Short arms, deep pockets. It's just hard to get those 20s. I can't get them.
Sure. Okay.
And then in adding realism also to the film, you have Dylan Swearingen. Am I pronouncing his name correctly?
Dylan Swearingen.
Dylan, thank you. And Dylan is a professional bull rider himself on the tour. That level of realism in there, and you have a stunt coordinator, and you have so much going on. What happens when you actually have a professional bull rider who's playing a character but wants to do his own stunts on the bull? Like, how do you find the balance of, we want to let you do it for even more realism, but for insurance purposes, we got to protect you from injuring yourself?
Well, here's the story. When we were trying to set the date to shoot, I had asked if we could start 2 weeks earlier, so that Dalen, who only had a certain window to work with us, would work with us before the PBR started, because I was worried about him getting hurt. Our financiers, it was a little tricky at times, so we didn't get them to say yes and have all the money in the right place at the right time. So we shot 2 weeks later. So what does he do? He breaks a couple of ribs. So he shows up, and I'm doing what Neal's doing, shaking my head, going, oh. And I said, well, I guess you can't ride. We'll just...
It's okay, John. I get it. No, it's okay. I got it. I
said, you can't ride if you got broken ribs.
Oh, yeah, I can. I got this. No problem.
So anyway.
These guys are so stupid tough, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm a pretty tough guy. John's a pretty tough guy. But these guys, I don't know any athletes are as tough as these bull riders.
I'm not man enough to get on a wild animal.
No, you're smart. So anyway, Dalen only did a couple of rides, still did them, but that's the kind of stuff that you have to deal with. And also you want to do it safely. You know, it's a 1,500-pound animal that wants to do what it wants to do. And either you hang on or you don't hang on. So it was challenging. You know, we had the support of the PBR. Sean Gleason, who's the CEO, basically gave me detailed notes on the script, which I did with the exception of one or two shots, which Neal will talk about. And Neal will also talk about the USA Film Festival.
Oh, we were at the USA Film Festival 2 weeks ago, and I sat next to Sean Gleason, the CEO of PBR. I'm sweating bullets because if he doesn't like the film, RC, we're toast, right? He's not going to support it. He's not going to back it. He's not going to tell everybody to go to watch it. And after the film, he comes up to me with tears in his eyes. He says, Neal, this is now my new favorite movie. So to get that kind of stamp of approval just shows how hard Jon Avnet worked on this film to make an $8.5 million budget look like a $50 million film. And it's just, again, if you want to support these types of films, you got to do it by actually going to the theater. You can go to Angel, pay it forward on Angel and buy tickets, or maybe people who can't afford tickets to go to theaters now, because theaters can be expensive. But so you got to support these films because it'll tell Hollywood, enough with this dark, crazy stuff. Let's make movies where the whole family can go in the heartland of America and be heard. And that's what we did.
I'm still stuck on $8 million, but yeah, no, that's fantastic. And yes, it's in theaters May 23rd. Congratulations on The Last Rodeo. And just one final note, you definitely made sure to let us know that milliseconds count. So congratulations on that and this film. I can't wait to actually go back to the theater and see it.
It's meant for the theaters. I shot it for the big screen. This guy's a leading man. That's what I wanted to show everybody. They should feel about him the way I do. He is great in this film, and he carries it. He finally gets to play somebody who's not a villain, and you see some of the stuff that's inside this guy, and it's gold.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. God bless you. Have a blessed
you.
Pentecost. May 23rd, The Last Rodeo. I'll talk to you guys later.
God bless. Thank you.